The Oklahoma Sooners get another win in the transfer portal, this time coming at defensive tackle.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire and USA Today Sports. Our guy Jay, he's out this week, or much of this week. He's traveling for work, but we'll catch up with him later in the week to catch up on all the things that has happened with the Oklahoma Sooners during the weekend, this week, and all that. We're going to ask the question in the third segment, is Oklahoma better? Has what they've done in the portal through their recruiting class made them a better team going into 2026? We'll discuss the curious case of PJ Adebaware on today's show as well, but we're going to start here. The Oklahoma Sooners get a win in the transfer portal, adding defensive tackle Bishop Thomas, a player who has spent 4 years at the collegiate level, signed with Florida State as a three-star prospect out of high school before transferring to Colorado for the 2023 season. He spent the last 2 years at Georgia State, and he's coming off of his best season of his collegiate career. In 2025, he had 48 total tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. He played in all 12 games for Georgia State, and that's the first time in his career that he's been able to do that. Prior to that, he was only able to play in 3 in 2024. Back in 2023 with Colorado, he did play in 9 games. So we're looking at a player that is coming off of the best year. He's peaking as he finishes out his collegiate career, and Oklahoma's hoping to take advantage of that ascension. And according to George Stoya of Sooners Scoop, the Sooners told him, and Todd Bates, I'm guessing specifically, told Bishop Thomas that he reminds them of Gracen Halton. And you need somebody that can help create penetration, get into the backfield, be disruptive, and provide those splash plays that Gracen Halton did. Now, will he come in and be Gracen Halton? That remains to be seen. You can see the potential in players. We've seen players with a lot of potential come to Oklahoma and do great. We've seen them live up to expectations or exceed expectations even in some cases. And we've seen some, Jay, not where you didn't ever see the potential actually come to fruition. So Bishop Thomas is still going to have a lot to prove. You know, the stats are not incredibly eye-popping when you look at him just in a raw metric, but you know, the 49 total tackles, that's pretty impressive. You know, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. What I found intriguing about Bishop Thomas when you dive into it is he's a versatile defensive lineman. He can play a lot of different spots across the defensive front, which I'm sure is intriguing for them. He's got good size. He's listed at 6'2" at 290 pounds. So he's somebody that you're not going to have to do a whole lot to add big weight to him to make sure that they are formidable against SEC offensive lines. But to the snap count point, 423 snaps in 2025 with Georgia State. And here's kind of how they broke down. He played 199 snaps as the 3-technique defensive tackle. So this is the guy that lines up between the guard and the offensive tackle. And his job generally is get up the field. Now I'd have to go back and watch Georgia State to see, okay, did they use a 2-gap scheme where they're relying on their defensive tackles to hold up the offensive line at a point of attack and then determine which way the running back is going to go? Or were they playing 1 gap and he's just flying through a gap? Because what Oklahoma likes to do is just send their defensive tackles up the field through a gap. Linebackers come from behind and they fill in gaps on the backside. So he played 199 snaps at 3-technique defensive tackle. He played 39 snaps at nose tackle. So that's lining up right over the center or between the center and the guard. That's where the nose tackle is going to line up. He played 159 snaps as a defensive end and 17 snaps as an edge. So that tells me he's got the athleticism to play on the edge. It also shows that, again, he's got that versatility, and Georgia State likely played a lot of 3-man defensive fronts. allowing him to just float across the defensive line. So again, a versatile defensive line prospect for Todd Bates and Miguel Chavis to deploy in Brent Venables' defense. Exactly how they're going to deploy them, we'll see. To be a nose tackle in the SEC, you're probably going to have to get up to 315, 320 to be more effective. But again, 290 as a 3 technique is really solid. That's a great place for him to start. I imagine they'll try to put on 10 to 15 pounds at least this offseason to get him where they want him to be. But he's got good potential. He's somebody that can factor into the defensive tackle rotation. And right now, like, you don't have to hope that he's going to be able to play in your 4-man rotation. You've done a good job at recruiting in such a way that you've got Jaden Jackson and David Stone coming back for 2026 that will lead your defensive tackle rotation. But Bishop Thomas can factor in as that 3rd guy or that 4th guy. Now, you still have to answer a question of, okay, who else is going to be in the defensive tackle rotation? You added Kenny Ozowalu. A lot of folks are projecting him to potentially play defensive tackle. He played edge at UTSA. He's 270 pounds, according to everything that we're seeing. And he did play some defensive tackle for them. But to play defensive tackle in the SEC, you're going to have to be bulked up a little bit more. So what do they do with him? That's going to be a question. You got Nigel Smith. According to everything that we've read, is they've bulked him up as well, and he's looking like he's going to play defensive tackle. You've got Trent Wilson. You've got Brian Harris coming in. You got James Carrington coming in. So you've got some defensive tackle options, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them continue to be aggressive on that front and try to find somebody that's going to be a fit for what they want to do defensively that can be a part of that 4-man rotation. Oklahoma wants to play 4 defensive tackles. That is evident. This year they played 5, quite a bit of snaps. You know, Marcus Strong got a big bump in his snap count because of Jaden Jackson, you know, dealing with some things throughout the season, but they want to play 4 guys. They're going to play 4 guys, at least 300 snaps, because they want everybody to be fresh. They want them to be at their best when it comes to the 4th quarter. So that's going to be kind of the big question mark, is who's the number 4 guy? Who's the 4th guy in the 4 horsemen, right? I think they'll find an answer internally. I'm sure they like their guys. You know, they've wanted to develop their guys and give their high school dudes an opportunity. Marcus Strong would have likely been part of that 4-man rotation, but he wanted to go be a starter somewhere. Clemson sees potential in him to come and be a difference maker for them. So you got David Stone, Jaden Jackson, Bishop Thomas, and then it's a matter of who rises to the occasion, who ascends and takes a defensive tackle spot for Oklahoma. But a good get in the transfer portal for Oklahoma. He's their 12th addition through the portal. I like what they've done so far. And this one is a really nice kind of stopgap defensive tackle that, okay, if your young guys like Trent Wilson, Brian Harris aren't able to contribute right away or ready to contribute in 2026, okay, this gives them another year to develop, right? Football is a developmental game. So we've got to be patient, take our time, bide our time with some of these guys as they continue to, you know, get their feet wet in college football and get their bodies right and get their minds right, and make sure they understand the playbook and are playing good football. But this guy gives you a little bit more time to wait on those guys. So if it's not Trent Wilson or Brian Harris, then maybe it's Nigel Smith, who was a big get in the 2024 recruiting class at defensive line, was initially projected to play defensive end, probably play defensive tackle for you. So another big one for Oklahoma. They're probably not done. They're going to continue to look to the transfer portal to solidify and fortify this roster for 2026. Again, we're going to discuss, have they made themselves better in 2026 compared to what they were in 2025? We'll talk about that in the 3rd segment. But coming up, we're going to talk about what happened with Adepoju Adeboware in the transfer portal next on Locked On Sooners. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and budget. My wife and I, we've been shopping for couches and bedding for our kids, and Wayfair's got everything that you're looking for, from bedding to accent pillows to furniture pieces, and shipping is easy, delivery is smooth, and everything arrives exactly as expected. So get organized, refreshed, and back on track this year with Wayfair for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And geez, the transfer portal is such an interesting phenomenon because this past spring, during the spring portal window, we saw David Stone go into the portal, and then like less than a day later, he was out of the portal. Well, this might be the fastest portal entry and exit that maybe we've ever seen. Adepoju Adeboware, it was reported over the weekend. George Stoya of Sooner Scoop was writing articles over there talking about how people were coming after PJ Adebaware. They were trying to get him into the portal and pull him away from Oklahoma. So he enters the transfer portal on Monday. 2 minutes later, his name exits the transfer portal. The understanding is that Oklahoma has been working really, really hard to retain him. And the assumption is they made a significant offer to keep him. We don't know what kind of offer it was, what the numbers look like, any of that. But what it tells you is that they have big plans for PJ Adebawore in 2026. And I think everybody had big expectations for him next season as somebody who's going to be a significant part of that defensive end rotation again, and likely be a starter for Oklahoma. He was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. He was a little bit raw, needed to continue to be developed, work on his body. He battled injuries during the 2024 season that stunted that development a little bit. But in 2025, he became a part of that rotation that helped you win 10 games and helped your defense be one of the best defenses in college football. So, I expect him to, again, be a part of this thing and be a major part of it. He had 283 snaps this season. 137 of those were pass rush snaps. So Oklahoma gave him an opportunity to get out there, rush the passer, and continue to get better. He was just 18th on the defense in snaps, but you're losing R. Mason Thomas. Who played 372 snaps. You're losing Marvin Jones Jr., who played 449 snaps. Your only kind of significant defensive ends returning for 2026 are Taylor Wine, Adepoju Adeboware, Danny Okoye. Those were the only other ones that played a lot for you. So getting him back, presuming that Oklahoma was able to retain him, that's huge, man. And listen, in his snaps, he was pretty solid. He showed a really strong ability to play run defense. Ended up with one of Pro Football Focus's highest grades in run D, and finished with 10 stops, 10 total pressures. So it's a guy that I think with more seasoning, another offseason with Miguel Chavis, another offseason in the weight room, a healthy offseason to continue to develop, he's going to continue to get better. Now, will he end up starting for Oklahoma? That remains to be seen. We'll see. He's going to be in a bit of a position battle with Danny Okoye. Everybody's expecting a bump from Wyatt Gilmore. Again, you added Kenny Ozowalu. Again, do they see him as a defensive end or a defensive tackle or a versatile chess piece? We'll see. But Adepoju Adeboware has a great chance to start opposite of Taylor Wine for you this year. And you need somebody to step up and fill a void left by R. Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones Jr. And he has that opportunity. He has that ability, has the length, the strength, and again, showed to be pretty good against the run. So now you just need him to take a step as a pass rusher to make sure that you have that secondary pass rush help opposite of Taylor Wine so that he can turn into a complete defensive end and have that breakout season that everybody's been waiting for. Again, he's been solid so far in his Oklahoma career, and I expect him to take a step this year. You need him to, because again, your defense lost a lot along the defensive line. So everybody needs to step up. But in 2025, he had 17 total tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 2.5 sacks. The 5.5 tackles for loss finished 9th on the team. 2.5 sacks was 7th on the team. But when you consider that Gracen Halton had 3.5 sacks, and that finished 4th. He wasn't far behind. So, he had a solid year for Oklahoma this last year. And again, was a big part of it. They want to rotate guys. They want to play 4 defensive ends. And so he did get a significant bump. But next year, you're going to need him to play 400 snaps, 450 snaps. Is he going to be ready for that? Can his body withstand that? Oklahoma's going to need it to. And this is that offseason where it's okay. You lose Marvin Jones, you lose R. Mason Thomas, you lose Dominic Williams, you lose Gracen Halton. So everybody else has to step up their games because those 4 guys were big time parts of this defense that are gone now. And so the pressure's on. PJ Adebaware, you've got to step your game up. But I mean, rumor had it like Alabama was one of those teams that was trying to lure Adebaware away from Oklahoma. That shows you that, hey, people see the potential. Now, it's going to be fascinating if we hear these numbers come out, what they look like. Was Oklahoma able to retain him because they, matched or increased the offer that they were giving him to return, or they bettered Alabama's offer? I'm not sure, but it's all going to be based on projection and potential, because the numbers would tell you, okay, he's not necessarily the most productive defensive end out there on the market, but with the size and the length, you think, okay, he's got the potential to be a elite pass rusher, an elite defensive end that can play all 3 downs. Some guys, you got to take them off the field during rundowns. Some guys, you got to take them off the field in pass rush situations. Well, he's got the size and the athleticism to be somebody that can be a difference maker on all 3 downs for you. Now he has to just step into that opportunity, step into that role. And without R. Mason Thomas, without Marvin Jones Jr., he's going to have a great opportunity for you. But this is where Oklahoma's defensive end rotation is at right now. You have Taylor Wine, you have PJ Adebaware, you have Danny Okoye, and then what else? I and many others like us expect that Jake Krell will factor into the defensive end rotation. Wyatt Gilmore, we expect him to compete for some snaps as well. Where does it go from there? Kenny Ozowalu, is he a defensive end? Is he a defensive tackle? What does Oklahoma see in him? But you had to have Adebaware return. Even though you're not looking at elite production so far, you're looking at that projection and thinking, okay, this is going to be the year that he breaks out. Because you lost R. Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones Jr., you didn't really have a lot of experience coming up behind it. And PJ's kind of that guy. You have Taylor Wine. Now you need that second guy. I hope that he takes that step, that he has that breakout year this year, because that 2023 class, it hasn't really yielded a ton of great results for you. You have him, you have Peyton Bowen, Heath Ozida coming back. You've had a lot of dudes on that from that 2023 recruiting class not really pan out quite like you hoped. And yeah, so you've got 6 guys from 2023 still on the roster: Adebaware, Peyton Bowen, Jacoby Johnson, Heath Ozida, Taylor Wine, and Taylor Heim. And Taylor Wine was one of the latest commitments in the recruiting class. And you can make an argument between him and Peyton Bowen. Who's been the best of that 2023 cycle? Well, it's one of those 2 guys, but Wine was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school. Shows you what putting in the extra work will do for you as you develop. So I don't know. We'll see, man. It's going to be interesting. And I can't wait to kind of hear the backstory as to what all happened. We may not hear it, but Jim Nagy and his staff and the coaching staff Mikael Chavis and Brent Venables doing their work to keep Adebaware in tow for the 2026 season is big. And you need your defense to find a lot of guys that step up and step into a lot of these roles. And Adebaware has got to be one of them. Is Oklahoma better than they were last year? We'll discuss coming up here on Locked On Sooners. There's nothing like college football season, tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever, but actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You can open up the Game Time app to look at upcoming college football games or basketball games, and you can be surprised at how fast it is to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. You go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, got to get that sip in. So the question is Oklahoma better? Obviously, there's a lot that still has to play out. The transfer portal is not even closed yet, and there will be opportunities to sign guys even after the transfer portal closes. The window to get them in for spring ball, okay, that's coming up. Oklahoma starts classes on January the 20th, so we have about a week for players to get signed and enrolled at Oklahoma so that they can be available for spring ball. Otherwise, you're looking at maybe some late signings that don't allow guys to get here until the summertime, at which case, hey, maybe they're ready for the 2026 season, but likely not. So the question, is Oklahoma better? I think they are. I think this is a better team than what we had on the field in 2025. The defense, you could look at the roster and I could see, hey, it's maybe not as better. Not as well, not as good, not as better, not as good. You lose Kendall Daniels, you lose Robert Spears Jennings, R. Mason Thomas, Marvin Jones Jr., Dominic Williams, Gracen Halton. That's a lot of losses. You lost, Kendall Dolby, you lost Devin Jordan. That's a lot to lose. Now you've added some key pieces on defense, but the Cole Sullivan pickup at linebacker was huge. If you can get Kip Lewis to come back for 2026, obviously incredibly huge. Getting PJ Adebaware to stay and not into the transfer portal, huge. But you're still losing a lot of production, a lot of experience, and a lot of snaps off that defense. But you're getting development from Eli Bowen and Cortland Guillory. You're getting another year of Peyton Bowen. You're going to see Michael Boganowski take a step. You're going to see Reggie Powers III take a step. So you've got some really intriguing young pieces on this defense that are ready to break out and take on significant roles. It's just now you've got to see it. Seeing is believing, right? And so Reggie Powers III, he's going to be a starting cheetah for you. We've seen the thunder. We've seen the big hits. And now it's like, okay, you're going to be on the field a whole lot more. Can you continue to make plays? And I think he will. I think he's going to be a big-time playmaker for Oklahoma at that cheetah spot. We already know Michael Boganowski is going to bring the thunder. Is he going to be able to hold up in coverage? That's going to be a big question on a down and down-out basis. He's got the speed and athleticism to do so, but now he's going to be asked to do a whole lot more. But I think the secondary is going to still be really, really good. The linebacker core, a lot of it depends on Kip Lewis and Owen Heineke, if they're able to come back or not. The Cole Sullivan pickup is huge, obviously. And then the defensive line, we've talked about it. We talked about it in the last segment. It needs guys to step up. It needs some of those young 4-star prospects, in Adebaware's case, a 5-star prospect, to step up and really have breakout seasons. Along the offensive line, I think you're better. The addition of a Marion Harris from Arkansas, that makes your right tackle spot better. You're going to have a bit of a competition at right guard to determine who's going to start for you there. Is it Ryan Foje or Heath Ozowalu? I expect that whichever way Oklahoma goes, it's going to make them better at that spot. Maybe not this year because Fabechi Wewu was so solid for you, but as a whole, this unit has a chance to be better because you're going to get more physical development from Ryan Foje, more from Heath Ozowalu. He's going to be healthier. More physical development from Jake Michela. Remember, Jake Michela didn't come to Oklahoma until the spring portal session. So he was somebody that missed a lot of the strength and conditioning stuff from the winter workouts, from the spring training session, and was kind of getting his feet wet during the summer. So I expect more physical development from him. Eddie Pierre-Louis got his first real run through college football this past season, and he's going to be able to grow from that and develop from that, fix some of the technical stuff that needs to be fixed. But the aggression is there, the physicality is there, and I expect him to continue to get better. And same with Michael Fasusi. You know, he had his just one off season with Oklahoma last year as a true freshman, was thrust into the starting lineup, had a lot of really good reps, had some that need to get better. But with another year in the strength and conditioning program, he's going to get more physically developed. He's going to be more physically mature, and he's going to be better than what he was last year. So I think the offensive line has a chance to be better. How much better is going to be the question. It has to be a better run game. We've got to get better as a run blocking unit. That's the area that has to improve the most for this team to take a step. I think with the addition of Marion Harris and the physical development and the physical maturation of the rest of the offensive line, it's going to have a shot to be a more physical unit at the point of attack and run the ball better. That's the missing piece. If Oklahoma runs the ball better, this offense is going to be really, really good in 2026. Okay, let's talk about the tight end position, because that's going to be an element that helps Oklahoma run the ball better with the additions of Hayden Hansen and Rocky Beers. And most people expect that they're going to go add another tight end. So you're going to be blocking better from the tight end position than you were last year. I don't think that Hayden Hansen brings as much of a dynamic pass catching threat that Jaren Kanak had, but he's a little bit more of a complete tight end. Rocky Beers does have that. He does add that element that allows you to stretch the field when you need a tight end to go catch a pass. He's more athletic than Hayden Hansen. He's a little bit faster than Hayden Hansen, but he's got good size and 6'5", 245, and he's a good blocker too. So you've got two tight ends that can come in and block right away for you. They can play on all three downs. Hayden Hansen may not be an elite pass catcher, but he's a good pass catcher. So you've got guys that you don't have to take off the field in certain situations. You can run two tight end sets if you need to, and you've got two guys that are capable of being out there on the field and helping you win. And then at wide receiver, love the additions of Trell Harris and Parker Livingstone. Those two guys step in and start for you right away. Whatever happens with Isaiah Satania, that doesn't change that. Those two guys are going to start for you on the outside. Isaiah Satania returning, which most people assume is going to happen. He'll start for you in the slot. And that's a great wide receiver trio. I'm excited about it. And John Mateer is going to be excited about it. It's better than what Oklahoma started the season with last year. Even though there were high expectations for a guy like Deion Burks, he never had the production that a Trell Harris had this past season for Virginia. Parker Livingstone, coming off of a redshirt freshman season with, averaging 17 yards per reception, having 6 touchdowns for Texas, being a playmaker for Arch Manning in that Texas offense. That's a big addition. So you've got a veteran in Trell Harris taking over for Deion Burks. You have Isaiah Satania, a veteran as well. That's 2 seniors that you're going to be rolling out there at wide receiver. We've seen how experience can matter and age can matter. And then Parker Livingstone, a dude that made a lot of plays for Texas last year, that's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder for Oklahoma this year. That makes your wide receiver core better. And then I think another year of development, we talked about the physical maturation process, right? And the mental maturation process. Elijah Thomas, Emmanuel Choice, they're going to get that. You got another year of Jermichael Carter, who every time he was on the field last year, it seemed like he made a play, made a big catch to extend a drive and keep an Oklahoma drive going. So I think wide receiver is better than what it was. Running back, you could argue is about the same, okay? Because we had expectations for Jade Knott, Javonte Barnes. It didn't really translate. Oklahoma didn't really get much out of them, but you bring back Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock. But the addition of Jonathan Hatton is super intriguing. The addition of Lloyd Avant, a guy who can play a variety of roles for you at running back. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, he can return kicks, can be a third down back, a change of pace back. That's an intriguing addition that I think, again, gives your running back room an opportunity to be better than what it was. Now, Xavier Robinson, Torrey Blaylock, for them, I just need them healthy. If they're healthy, then Oklahoma's going to have a shot to create something on the ground. But so much of what happens in the run game can be out of their control. They've got to be better, but the offensive line has to be better in run blocking. Ben Arbuckle has to be better in the run scheme and just being convicted in running the football, actually having some conviction, regardless of what it looks like on 1st and 10 and you only run for 2 yards, keep running it because eventually it's going to pay off and it's going to wear down defenses. So the run game, there's a lot that has to get better. But I think with some of the additions that they've made, both in the recruiting class and in the transfer portal, I think that they're better. And then John Mateer. I think John Mateer had a solid season for Oklahoma. Was it a great season? No, it wasn't. Was it a good season? Listen, I think there were times that it was good. The Michigan game, the Auburn game, against Ole Miss, or not against Ole Miss, sorry, against Alabama in the playoff. Aside from the pick six, there were a lot of good moments for John Mateer. I thought he played a good season at times. There were times where you needed more from him. Obviously, he had the thumb surgery middle of the season. That's going to make it really difficult for any quarterback. But the potential is there for him to have a better year in 2026 than what he had in 2025 because the positions around him have improved. Quarterback is not played on an island. It's a part of a team game, and this offense has gotten better with what they've done in the transfer portal. So I expect that John Mateer will be better. Also, he'll be, by the time Oklahoma steps on the field in 2026, he'll be like 10 months removed from the thumb surgery. Almost 11 months removed from the thumb surgery. That's going to be huge for his ability to grip the ball, throw the ball, make plays down the field. Because we saw a lot of it in the Michigan and Auburn game. We saw what he can be for Oklahoma. Then he hurt his thumb, and it took a lot of the season to get back some of that ability down the field and some of that mojo. So I expect this team to be better. The schedule, it looks more favorable this year than it did last year. We'll see. You still have some tough games on it with Georgia and Texas, obviously. Kentucky's going to be potentially better, and Mississippi State's going to be better, things like that. But Missouri, are they going to be better? I don't think so. So you're going to have some challenges on the schedule, but now Michigan, I think, is going to be better than what they were last year, mostly because Bryce Underwood will have another season or be in his second season of college football, and you're playing the Wolverines in Ann Arbor. But I think this team is better. Will they win 10 games and go back to the college football playoff? I think so. They're a better team. So I imagine that they're going to be right there in the mix to be a college football playoff team once again in 2026. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow my guy, Jay, at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, I'm John Williams for my guy, Jay Boomer Sooner.